Let's say that we load a file starting in the Exchange Network Services Center and it has errors in it. We have a file with 4 rows and we're submitting it through the Exchange Network Services Center, and we've specified stop on error no, which means that if there are rows that are fine, they'll go ahead and go all the way through to post here. If there are rows that aren't fine, they're going to be left behind in what's called the staging tables. And in the staging tables, what's left behind that has something wrong with it that doesn't make it all the way through to post can be corrected using the correct menu. So we'll demonstrate that. So I'm going to go ahead and click send data and send this data to AQS. And then it will say request received and it will be processing for a while. You can click view the status of this request in my activity and it's processing, and you can keep clicking refresh activity because we're impatient and we want to know when is it loading and what's going to happen. And then it'll say pending. And then you see transaction status completed. Number of rows successfully staged 4. That's to the first step. Number of rows that failed to stage none. Number of transactions successfully loaded 3, but we know we had 4 rows. Number of transactions with load error 1. And remember we specified to not stop on error, so that means that 3 of the 4 rows that we tried to post posted. Number of records skipped by post 0, but that's because there was a load error. So number of transactions with load error 1. So how do we correct that? And how do we find out which one didn't make it through to post? So we go back into AQS and we go to batch, and this opens up with the history and status panel that shows the most recent file that we tried to load at the top. And you can see the description of what happened here. So this is our file, and as we talked about in another video, you can click in there and use your arrow key to see more of the file name. Number of records in the file 4, we had 4 hours in there, and post completed, so everything that's going to happen with this file has happened with it. 3 records loaded, 3 records went on to post, and 3 records posted. However, we've got 1 that failed to load. So how do we find that row and fix it so that it can also post? We go to the correct menu, and you can correct data that's in the staging tables. What that means is it hasn't yet gone all the way to post. So if you go to correct and click on raw, it opens up again, remember, in a query window, so it doesn't know what you want. However, we logged in as our screening group, right? Because that's the only way that we can edit data. So this window knows what screening group we are. We can go ahead and click execute query. So when you've executed this query, you see what's in the staging table that hasn't made it all the way through to post. And you can see right away why this didn't make it through. When you click in a row, it's blue to let you know which row you're working in, which row is active, and it will tell you the error message down below as to why it didn't go all the way through to post. Obviously, the value of 6,999 micrograms per cubic meter is outside the range for that parameter. It's obviously an error. So how do we correct it? Well, remember, this is a query. So right now, it has just pulled this up. We can change this. So let's say we realize what we need to do is null this out. So we've looked in our site logbook. We figured out that a sensor wasn't attached or some other reason why this is a miscellaneous void. So to edit this value, first of all, we definitely don't want this 6,999 as our reported sample value. So I'm going to click in there and I'm just going to backspace till it's blank. Then I'm going to go over here to this null data code, click the drop down. Because this is definitely a machine malfunction, I'm going to select the null value code of AN, say OK. One thing to notice is that there's a grabber bar down here at the bottom. So there are other fields here over here to the right. They aren't filled in for this particular data. Now, I've corrected this, but remember, this is just in the staging tables. How do I make sure that this gets loaded up into AQS? First of all, I need to save this record, because remember, this is a query. So until I click save, this is not going to be saved as this record in the staging table. So I'm going to click save, and then it tells me transaction complete, records applied and saved at the lower left. And now I'm going to go back to batch. And what happened is this file still has one record in it in the staging table. So I'm going to go ahead, now that I've corrected that one row, the record failing to load row that was left in the staging table, I'm going to go ahead and try to load it again. So I'm going to click Load File, Job Successfully Submitted. Ooh, that was hard. And then it's active, meaning it's still thinking, so don't click Load File again. Click Refresh Sessions, and that will just give it the new status. So now it's going through CRST. That's where it just checks to make sure that it's not wildly out of the range of normally reported data for this site. And of course it won't be because we don't have very much data in here. I'm going to click Refresh Sessions again. Okay, it's gone through that, and now that's completed. I'm going to click Refresh Sessions again, because remember, I'm trying to take it all the way through to post. So now it says that one record went to post, which is what I want, because there was only one more left. I'm going to click Post File, Job Successfully Submitted. Keep clicking Refresh Sessions. It's gone through the statistical check. Keep on clicking, and we should see ultimately it going all the way to post. Post completed! Wahoo! So now, just to make sure, first of all, I'm going to go into the correct raw, and again, this opens up in query mode. If you've got more than one site or more than one parameter, you can specify those here, but since we only have one row of data that might be in the staging table that didn't make it all the way through to post, I'm going to go ahead and just click Execute Query and show all the data for my screening group that's in the staging tables that didn't make it through to post. And it doesn't find anything, so I think it made it through all the way to post. So how do we check that? Let's go to Maintenance, Sample Values, Raw Data, and it cancels the query for the form I'm in, which is fine because I'm done with it. And now I want to look at all the data that I've got here for these specifications, for this tribal code, for this state, and the site ID, and I'm going to click Execute Query. What does it find? And it's even got the value that I just now turned into a machine malfunction. So it made it in, and you can see that it took out that 6,999 value. So that's how you correct one row. If you've got a lot of rows that didn't make it through to post, it might be the best thing just to edit your data and resubmit the whole thing.